All right, episode 5 of the Department Podcast. Justin's back with Steve, Joe, and Jesse. This will be a little bit of a shorter one, but two big pieces of New York sports news broke on Saturday. One being the Knicks are finalizing a 5-year deal to make Tom Thibodeau their new head coach. But more importantly is that safety Jamal Adams was traded from the New York Jets to the Seattle Seahawks for Bradley McDougall and 3 other draft picks. Oh, boy.
Yeah, that's a word right there. Or I like to say, oh, baby. Put it that way. Crazy stuff going on. Who do you think won the trade? I'm still debating in my head. I can't make up a decision yet of who won this trade.
Well, the initial impact is obviously going to be the Seahawks.
Of course.
Because those draft picks won't pay off for 2 more years or so. And even then, the draft picks, the hopes are when you get, a player like Jamal Adams, you're a playoff team. So then those picks are going to be in the late to mid-20s. And then a team like the Jets, who don't particularly draft well, and when they do, they just ship out those players. Are those draft picks really worth anything then?
Yeah. Now, I'd say right now, like you said, the Seahawks have the advantage. They have, in my opinion, the best safety in the league right now. They have the best linebacker in the league on that team. It's just a very stacked defense, and if the offense can perform on Seattle the way they've been with Russell Wilson, DK Metcalf, Chris Carson, get another receiver, maybe Josh Gordon or Antonio Brown, you're talking about a Super Bowl contender right there.
Is a safety worth a pair of first-round picks? That's the biggest question.
Okay.
If the linebacker, that's a different question.
Well, that's the thing. Jamal Adams doesn't just play safety. He's actually lined up at linebacker or defensive line in his career more than safety.
So that's the biggest question. And how is Seattle going to use him? Seattle, they dropped 2 safeties back 40% of the time.
Last year.
That's last year. That's not what Jamal Adams is.
Yes, but if you look back to when they were the Legion of Boom with Earl Thomas, not saying anybody on the Seahawks and Cam Chancellor, Adams is a much more closer to Chancellor where you put him in the box and you allow him to go to work while also still being a better cover than Cam.
Yes, the biggest comparison is to Cam Chancellor.
Yeah.
But financially speaking, is he worth this amount? The amount of picks and the amount of money that they're going to have to pay him now.
If they get more rings on their fingers, 100%. 100%.
Because essentially, he's going to do what Bobby Wagner can already do on this team.
So you're getting another Bobby Wagner.
You get another Bobby Wagner. Who doesn't want 2 Bobby Wagners?
Exactly.
Would that be better invested in a different position? Say wide receiver. Say tackle.
No. They're fine with wide receiver. They're on the offensive side of the ball. They're solid.
Don't forget Greg Olsen too is another weapon they just recently got. So they have weapons. They have a secondary. They have literally everything. A top 5 quarterback in the league, top 3. So they have everything. This was almost like the missing piece in a way, just to really add to a Super Bowl contender.
And here's the thing too.
They gave up a lot.
Of course, yes.
But that being said, Seattle is not very well known to hit on their first-round picks in the past, 3-4 years.
But it's ridiculous to think that the Jets are going to bust on this pick when Joe Douglas, and we haven't seen him. We haven't really seen what he's going to do with this new Jets franchise.
Absolutely. We haven't seen Joe Douglas, but we have seen what the Jets have done in the past about 10 years.
Let's go through the Seattle point of view first, and then we'll move on to the Jets. This is what I see from Seattle. I see a team that went 11-5, but looking back at it, the point differential was +7 last year. +7. Is Jamal Adams really that big of a – and they also lost Clowney, who was, a big piece for them.
But here's the thing. When you swap out essentially Jamal Adams for Jadeveon Clowney, you're getting an upgrade.
It's an upgrade.
Clowney doesn't get to the quarterback. Jamal Adams, even as a safety, does.
Jamal Adams had 6.5 sacks last year.
Clowney, people think he's this unworldly pass rushing talent when he's really just a glorified run defender.
He literally had one good play in college, which got him drafted. in the high first.
No doubt about that.
Yeah, like that's what got him drafted.
But I don't think that the gap between, like, I don't think Clowney to Adams is the difference between second and first place in the NFC West for the Seattle Seahawks.
Well, I'm still not
when
on.
You see how Pete Carroll, ran the original Legion of Boom, other than Michael Bennett, they didn't have a significant pass rusher up front. It was their secondary that bought them time to get that pass rush that they had. Jamal Adams can be that pass rush and that coverage down deep and play the run. He'll impact that team a lot more than Clowney ever will. And Joe, going back, if a player is a game wrecker, why does it matter what position they are if they're worth that money?
Well, if they're worth the money, I would invest the money in a safety like the Honey Badger.
That's Jamal Adams is a bigger Tyrann Mathieu.
Basically.
Tyrann Mathieu has literally said that. That is a quote from Tyrann Mathieu said Jamal Adams is a bigger version of me. Said it at Super Bowl weekend. Literal quote. Look at it. He said it.
He's better in coverage. I don't know what to tell you.
Who, Tyrann Mathieu?
Yeah.
Tyrann Mathieu's a little bit better in coverage, but Jamal Adams does so much more to disrupt the quarterback than Tyrann Mathieu could ever hope to.
Tyrann advances in certain stats, while Jamal's like the total package, in my opinion.
And I mean, we seen what Tyrann Mathieu did for the Chiefs, and the Chiefs had a worse defense than Seattle.
They had him in coverage, which is very important. Well, and I think that he's more. I think a coverage safety is more valuable.
But also, Matthew's more versatile as a defensive back, while Jamal Adams is more versatile of an overall defensive player, is how I see it.
I don't think Jamal Adams isn't great. I think that he has the ability to disrupt an entire game. But do I think that his skill set as a player is worth 2 first-round picks and a starting caliber safety? I don't know. I don't think so. And I don't think that we could just crown the Seahawks champions based on this.
Oh, we're not going to crown them champions.
That's a thing.
You can't say they are not more dangerous after this trade. They're a much better team.
Yeah.
But you don't know how they're going to handle having Jamal Adams on.
But the thing is, it closes the gap a lot more between them and San Francisco for the top of the West.
And I mean, as far as I'm concerned, how big was that gap? Seattle was so close to beating San Francisco in that Week 16 game.
And I'm still not sold on San Francisco. It's just their defense.
Yeah.
If their defense has a lackluster game one game, they're losing that game.
And
look what their defense did in the Super Bowl too. They let up the lead. So we can't even count the
49ers. The 49ers almost lost to the Steelers Week 3 with Mason Rudolph out there.
The 49ers.
Jimmy Garoppolo almost got dogged by Mason Rudolph.
The 49ers last year, I think we can agree that probably other than the 49ers, the 3 best teams were probably New Orleans, Kansas City, and Baltimore.
Yes.
I think that's fair.
Yeah.
Very fair.
Beat New Orleans on the road. Came close to beating Baltimore. Played them very, very better than anyone played Baltimore all year last year until Tennessee on the road in Baltimore. And in the Super Bowl, they were 3/4 of the way, dominating them through 3 quarters. You can't discount that. Also, the fact that they shellacked the 13-3 Green Bay Packers. And they also
we can talk about
who
the
were
Packers.
not good. I'm not going to say
okay. Because you brought up point differential earlier, and the 13-3 Packers should have been 10-6 according to their point differential.
I am just making a point that they dominated. They either dominated or played extremely close, the best competition in the league, at a disadvantage of playing on the road. San Francisco 49ers were legit last year, and Kyle Shanahan is not a flash-in-the-pan sort of coach like a lot of people, associated Sean McVay or a Cliff Kingsbury with. He's on a different level. He's established. He's brought multiple offenses to a Super Bowl with completely different personnel.
Absolutely agree. On the other spectrum, Carroll, as a defensive coach and a defensive backs coach, has brought teams to the Super Bowl and conference championships as well.
But, okay, I'll ask you this question. Do you trust the Seahawks offensive coaching more or the 49ers defensive coaching more?
Probably 49ers defense.
49ers
I'll give you
defense,
that one. I'll give you that one. Yeah.
I look, there is a way they can utilize Jamal Adams and turn this into a Legion of Boom 2.0. There is a way, but it's not going to be just a plug and play sort of situation.
I don't know.
I think first off, this is an entirely different conversation. Also, if we know Quentin Dunbar is playing, because if I don't think he is either. But you never can say never. If Dunbar does play and they have Shaq Griffin and Dunbar locking up cornerback 1 and cornerback 2, this is a steal of a move because their pass coverage is set. That being said, he might not be. So now you're kind of looking more at Keandre Diggs who's a
playmaker.
He is. He's good.
But he's not a number one corner yet, though.
Well, that's the thing. He would if they want to use Adams in a similar way that they used Cam Chancellor, Keandre Diggs has to step into the Earl Thomas role of covering seam routes while also covering the deep corner routes.
They're going playing as a Cam Chancellor. That's pencil that in.
So I think they're gonna use him as a Cam Chancellor hybrid. I think he's gonna drop into coverage more than Chancellor. But I also think he will blitz the quarterback more than Chancellor did stepping just down into the box.
Mixing it up a little bit, you're saying.
As of right now, as sad as it sounds, the Seahawks' best pass rusher is Jamal Adams.
Yeah.
I mean, but even that being said, that is better than a pass rush they just had. Because Adams had 6.5 sacks, and Clowney, who, as Justin said earlier, is supposed to be this dominant pass rusher that everybody hypes up, he had 3 sacks last year.
No doubt about that. Him and Bobby Wagner all had 3 apiece. Upsetting.
Yeah.
And Bobby Wagner does not. That's not his game.
They were built to play the run and have been, and that's why they match up well against the 49ers. But I don't it's tough for me to say because a lot of it does have to do with Quandre Diggs. And it depends on really how you feel about him because he's shown flashes of being, an all-pro, that sort of level. I don't know. It's still a question mark. So every once in a while you'll get a trade or a big move. Like when Khalil Mack got traded to the Bears, I think this is we had a similar sort of reaction to it. I think that was a similar trade to compare this one to, as far as, the ability of changing a team. Yeah. I don't know if Jamal Adams is going to change the entire spectrum of how we view it changed. That trade flipped the Bears upside down. And I think this trade is being treated like it's on the caliber, but I think I'll throw it in a tier below.
But here's the thing, though.
The difference. Go ahead, Justin.
They have Khalil Mack was traded mid preseason almost.
Yes.
Basically.
Yes.
Jamal Adams was traded a week and a half before training camp, so he has more time to get acclimated.
We don't know that though.
But they have more time though.
Going to be. Yeah, they have more time.
Who knows with whatever the NFL season's
They have more calendar time, but I don't know if they have more practice time.
Exactly. But even then, at least he's going to learn the playbook and at least be in the meetings a lot sooner than Mac was.
And there's a difference between the Bears and the Seahawks, too, where they are.
Yes, that's what I was going to say.
Exactly. As a team, as when they got Khalil Mack compared to where the Seahawks are right now when they got Jamal Adams. The Bears were nowhere near winning that division. The Seahawks, they're almost tied with the Niners to win the division. There's just a huge difference in that.
Yeah. Seattle, as far as I'm concerned, is way ahead of Chicago from that regard because they have their quarterback. They know where they're going. They were already a contender last year. When you have a top 3 quarterback in the league, you're always, to some degree, a contender, unless you were Drew Brees on those 7 and 9 Saints teams. But no, I mean, from Seattle's standpoint, I think what else were they going to do? Who else could they have gone out and gotten for this haul that was really on the trade market? that was going to make as big of an impact as Jamal Adams.
No, they had to make this move, especially considering that there was a lot of talk the 49ers were in. I think that the 49ers, that was a play. That they went out and they leaked this whole, like, we're going to – because there was a lot of reports. They're going to make this offer they can't refuse, Godfather sort of offer.
A smart move on their part. Can't blame them
and
for
if
that.
that is what they did, then I understand, because it seemed like it was the Seahawks or Dallas. I'm very thankful that it's not Dallas.
Jamal Adams was about to torment Daniel Jones for the rest of his career.
Yeah, I mean, we saw that last year. What was it?
Yeah.
But I see, if you're Seattle, this is exciting. You make this move any day of the week, especially because those first round picks probably going to be late, mid to late.
Yeah.
And
25 plus.
They're probably going to be, the third string running backs with,
Yeah.
So, I mean, this you pulled the trigger on this move. I'm not going to kill the Seahawks for making the move because they had to.
It's the last ditch effort for a win now move for them, even though because they never really fully had to rebuild. They just kind of had to retool, and they're back to where they were, where this could be the missing piece.
Absolutely.
That's what the Bears move with Mac was supposed to be, but obviously they're offensively way short of being a win now team. But Russ has an actual full offense with him, so this is the perfect cherry on top move for the Seahawks.
Yeah.
And something different about the Mac deal is when Mac was traded to the Bears, it was immediately, okay, now they have to work out an extension.
Yeah.
The Seahawks don't have to do that. Adams is making $4 million this year. They have a contract option on him next year.
In his fifth year from his rookie deal.
And they don't have to extend him until 2 years from now, which at that point, let's say he's making, realistically, I think we can all expect 4 years, 60 to 64 million is probably where he's going to end up being. And at that point, the Seahawks already have $17 million in cap space this year. So extending him doesn't break their bank the same way that the Bears paying Mac does, which, again, totally warranted because Mac's a game changer. But there was pressure on them from the start to get that contract done. Now Adams is in Seattle for at least the next 2 years before they have to pay him.
Yeah, no, that's the thing. They have the control of him. And even, they have to worry about potential holdout next year. That's next year,
Yeah.
They have him for 1 full year. He's going to be happy because he's out of New York. So this year, contractually, he won't be a problem with a holdout.
Yes.
For the Jets, though.
Yeah, on the others, let's go to the other side of the ball. For a little bit.
They were forced to move him. It was clear he didn't want to be there.
They had no leverage, and to make this trade with no leverage is brilliant. I mean, the world knows you're trading him, and they did this pretty brilliantly, and they still got a starting safety.
Oh, a great safety.
And I mean, you hear people around the league are raving about B-Mac, as we're going to call him now.
B-Mac. He's great.
Look, he's a solid starter. He is. He's good.
Yeah. He's a starter, and that's really what they need. I mean, the glaring needs still are much bigger than safety. I mean, they had Jamal Adams. They still had one of the best run defenses in the league last year. Like, they have more glaring needs.
The picks need to be invested in offensive help for Sam Darnold.
Offensive linemen in general.
Yeah.
They need someone to get to that passer. Like, I think it would be funny if they invested this saved cap room in Jadeveon Clowney. It won't happen, but that would be a little fun.
This is just another player that Adam Gase did not want to have to deal with or coach and basically got rid of.
I just want to know, who does Adam Gase want to coach? You give him talented players, and he's like, I don't want them. No. What do you mean? You don't want talented players?
When Gruden came back, I was very vocal of how he was ripping down the team and ripping it apart, But at least those players are starting to pan out. Gase doesn't have the credibility that, Gruden had. Well, so I don't know what they're doing at this point.
And as far as everybody knows, though, for the most part, Gase is a duck in the water. He's here for this year, and then he's probably gone. Well, which I don't even know why you're waiting on this year.
Why do you hire – who hires a GM after the coach?
Like, well, who hires a GM, has him do a full draft, then fires him? Yeah, let's start there, I guess. But
it is very ass backwards. But like Joe Douglas has not. I haven't been upset. He fleeced the Giants with Leonard Williams. I mean, I'll come right out, and I'll say that Mekhi Becton. There was a lot of people.
There's potential. There's high potential for him.
There's high potential, but there's also a very low floor.
Of course.
As Becton, to me, reminds me of Greg Williams when he came out. Or, excuse me, Greg Robinson when he came out.
He gets the weight down. A little bit.
That's a little bit – it's a little scary because of, like, just the way he performed at the Combine, the way he was built up to the draft. It reminds me a lot exactly of Greg Robinson, who we all know how that panned out.
Yeah.
The Jets are – I think if Becton went to a more tied up team, like let's say, he makes it to Seattle or New England or one of those, I would have no doubts about him. But in New York, where it seems like first-round picks kind of never really pan out, or they pan out too well and they get traded because they're tired of losing.
Or they pan out after they leave.
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, it feels a little tough to really get on board with them drafting a project lineman when they're not known to have a good line in the first place.
This is how I see it. And before we wrap up and move on to Tom Thibodeau, and Joe has some news for us, Gase at this rate should not be the coach at that point to see who they draft with these picks. Douglas should be, but Gase should not be there for these picks.
As far as I'm concerned, Gase shouldn't be there right now. If everybody knows Gase is done, if everybody knows he's over, Jamal Adams came out and said Adam Gase is not a leader. He's not the right man to lead this team, and other players agree with him. Why is he still the coach for this year?
The way Le'Veon Bell reacted was very interesting.
To Jamal?
To Jamal.
Okay.
Le'Veon was very upset that Jamal talked all this, talked about how, we're a team. He's like the leader, he's with us, and basically recruited Le'Veon Bell and then left. It's bizarre. And Le'Veon Bell has every reason to be on Jamal Adams' side because you remember Adam Gase didn't want him publicly.
Yes. They shopped him at the deadline last year.
It's almost the same situation if Jamal would have sat out with the Jets then. We're talking deja vu. If the Jets wouldn't have gotten the deal done, we would have seen a Jamal sit out.
Which is exactly what Le'Veon did.
Exactly. So
and now Le'Veon's just upset that somebody pulled a Le'Veon on Le'Veon.
On Le'Veon, exactly. I get why he's upset, but he needs to take a step back. And
Le'Veon wasn't recruiting players to the Steelers. Le'Veon wasn't Mr. Pittsburgh. Let's.
Le'Veon really seemed to like Pittsburgh, and he was much better in Pittsburgh. I think we can't argue that.
That's the Jets' offensive line too.
Yeah, that's a lot to do with Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
But let's not act like Jamal Adams hated New York from the start.
No,
he liked New York. The relationship soured because he wanted to talk about a contract extension, the leader of the defense, the best player on the defense.
Best player on the team.
And they just said, no, we don't want to talk about it, which is just – and I've made this point before. I would understand if the Jets were a good team and they had a lot of players to pay. And they were like, oh, well, we don't really know, where we're going with the money and everything. That would make sense. The Jets don't have anybody to pay besides eventually maybe Sam Darnold if he decides to stick around. Literally look at their roster.
Yeah,
I know.
They're not paying
the only one is Darnold in 3 years.
And they're already trying to offload Le'Veon's contract.
They definitely knew that there was bigger holes.
Yeah.
than it could have afforded to let.
The Jets are as dysfunctional as usual. Seattle got a good player. That's my summation of this trade. What about you guys? Any last closing thoughts on Jamal Adams getting traded to the Seahawks?
Seahawks are contender. Jets are going to mess up their first-round picks from Seattle.
Seahawks won the battle. The Jets will win the war.
Ooh, well,
let's see if the Jets actually get to keep the first-rounders that Seattle gave them.
So, Joe, what news you got for us?
So while we were recording, texts started flowing in, tweets all over the timeline. Little impromptu subject here, but Justin Verlander, some sort of elbow injury, out for the year for Houston. So that's a big blow to one of the big favorites in the American League right there.
I just want to say one thing. We did 2 years or so of radio shows and never had breaking news during a show or before it. Always right after. So the fact
the wee of the morning.
Yeah, but the fact that we're doing a random podcast in the summer now is just like, here's some random news for you.
Crazy.
It's great.
But now at this point, with him being out, there is no reason that the Yankees don't make the World Series out of the AL now.
For sure.
Biggest question mark right now is, do the A's win the West? It's very possible. It's very likely at this point. So that's big. And then number two is the pressure that this puts on the Yankees. Almost puts the ball completely in their court. It's theirs to lose.
Especially with the new playoff format.
Oh, yeah.
You know, the Astros now are vulnerable. When you have a rotation of Jose Urquidy, Zach Greinke, and Lance McCullers,
yikes.
That's not a playoff rotation at all.
We might see Forrest Whitley this year. Big prospect.
They might have to out of emergency.
Have to, yeah.
You know,
it's World Series or bust for the Yankees.
The lineup is still there, but their pitching is just atrocious now.
Oh, man. This helps them so much. It literally it narrows the race. It just narrows the race down to one now. Like I just said a second ago, it's World Series or bust for the Yankees. And like you said, Joe, the ball's in their court. It's what they do with this opportunity now.
If the Yankees don't win this year, or at least even if they somehow don't make it out of the conference, it's a huge bust.
Yeah,
it's massive.
If they don't make it out of the league, it's a big one.
They need to win the AL. It's simple as that. Because yes, there are the annoying teams that could be pesky and an issue for the Yankees.
But they're clearly a tier down.
Well, that's the thing. Like the A's, the Rays, you know, even the White Sox, the Indians, you know, they could be, you know, a trouble for the Yankees, but they're not going to be, you know, a juggernaut what the Astros were. Granted, the lineup is still what, you know, the lineup was last year, but that pitching, it doesn't even compare now to the Yankees.
And then the Astros.
That was the thing that they had over the Yankees.
That was the equalizer last year.
That was the equalizer. And now with that's gone, what do they do better than the Yankees?
The Astros are going to have – well, first of all, the thing they do better than the Yankees is hit. They're still a better offensive team. Number two –
well, I mean, let's see without that trash can.
Oh, got it.
Sorry. I mean, I don't know. I haven't seen it without, you know, the bangers.
Or the buzzers.
Like, so a long term now for the Astros, we're going to have a 38-year-old Verlander coming off of an elbow injury, an old Zach Greinke. I don't know how much this rotation's built to last. And on top of that, George Springer's going to be a free agent after this season. Maybe this could be a quick end. Like, the window could be shutting.
I was about to say, the window might be closed.
So.
It's almost like what the Cubs are now, where it was a team who looked like they were built for a quick dynasty of, you know, always being around. And just like that, as fast as they, you know, rose to their prominence, they're gone.
Gone, yeah.
I think most of the time when you look at a team that's built for a dynasty, pretty much in any sport, majority of the time it doesn't pan out. Or it doesn't last as long as you think it's going to, especially.
And that's why, you know, really got to appreciate like what the Giants did over a 6-year span every other year, what the Warriors, you know, just finished doing. You know, dynasties don't come and go. A lot of teams show the promise, but a lot of them, you know, half the time can't pull it off.
Yeah.
It's so hard to be a dynasty. That's why a lot of people are talking about this preemptively. It's like, let's pump the brakes. Very difficult.
Well, yeah. And I mean, like, we all seen how everybody dubbed Seattle the next dynasty. Made it to 2 Super Bowls, won 1. You know, everybody wanted to get paid. And I mean, even if you go to the Patriots dynasty, it's like, okay, they won 3 pretty quickly in like 03, 04, 05. And then there's that long gap.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, is that a dynasty, or is that two different dynasties?
Well,
so
they go undefeated in the middle of that gap.
Yes, but they don't win the Super Bowl. Don't mean a thing without the ring.
So I just looked up Verlander's contract on Spotrac, right? Now, obviously, it just says elbow injury. Don't know what it is. Say worst case scenario, UCL, Tommy John, right? He would then probably miss majority of all of next season, if not all of next year.
Yeah, because of where he got this injury right now.
He'd then be
he'd then be 38.
He'd be 39 and be a free agent.
Might as well just retire.
So this could have been, depending on what the injury, the severity of it is, it could have been like a Cliff Lee scenario where he got hurt on opening day and then that was it.
Yeah, I think he's done.
I think he's done too. No,
Wow.
He's a 38-year-old pitcher with years of mileage and wear and tear on him. This isn't good.
Well, he has a hot wife, so at least he has that going for him.
And the weirdest thing, so as like a newer baseball fan and everything, the one thing from the outside looking in, especially, that's always been so weird is like, how is a pitcher good one year and then the next year they're just terrible?
Look at
I've seen
Diaz.
Cy Young winners. Who's the guy on the Rockies? That was like Cy Young.
Ubaldo Jimenez.
Kyle Freeland.
Wow.
Freeland. Terrible. And the year after he was in contention for Cy Young, absolutely garbage. So it's like, okay, let's even say Verlander has a down year when he comes back when he's 39. Is anybody going to take a flyer on a 40-year-old pitcher with that much mileage?
Unless you're very desperate, no.
Yeah.
And at that point, like, maybe you're pushing tickets.
And at that point, the Astros might just pack it up and go home and start the rebuild all over again.
Probably.
And if this is the way his, career ended, it sucks.
That sucks.
But also, I'm trying to find the tweet, but I think it was Buster Only, where he had the most has the most innings of any active pitcher thrown.
Yeah.
So
Frank probably in the top 5.
Wear and tear. It's wear and tear.
So, but this basically clears a path now for the Yankees to the World Series.
Oh, yeah.
Who do you guys think is now even the next biggest threat?
To the Yankees?
Tampa Bay.
Tampa Bay's always they do weird, stuff that literally can, like G-Man Choi hit righty today and hit a home run. Apparently he knows how to switch it. So they always try out weird stuff and it works out. But other than that, maybe the Indians, maybe the A's.
I'd say A's.
But even then, those teams, they don't play them until they wouldn't play them until the playoffs.
The Twins.
The Twins are just going to bash their way. They're just going to bash their way to the playoffs. So that doesn't matter.
That matters. It doesn't matter.
They have no pitching though. That's the thing. To an extent.
We'll see.
So, it sucks for Verlander, but for Yankee fans and even the Yankee themselves, they have to be. It's a sigh of relief. A little bit.
Absolutely. I mean, the worst way.
You hate for an injury, but you're happy that you don't have to face him. Then is really how it turns out.
Of course.
So, last piece of news that we're going to talk about: the Knicks got their head coach, 5 years for Tom Thibodeau. The complete wrong hire for a young team that they want to try to develop. When meanwhile, there's another guy who is available who literally rebuilt a team of young talent to a good core of players to get superstars to come and sign with them, who's still available across the Brooklyn Bridge. Yeah. Kenny Atkinson.
Yeah.
The Knicks just went full Knicks. I don't see the appeal in Tom Thibodeau at all.
No. Especially no.
If I'm Mitchell Robinson, if I'm Frank the Tank, maybe he can.
Maybe because those are guys that need defense, like, to be the primary thing that the team does to really succeed.
Those two guys are the winners. I'm going to say the only winners of this.
The biggest loser out of this, RJ Barrett.
Is RJ Barrett.
Oh, for sure.
Easily Barrett.
His knees. Of course.
This could literally ruin his career. Yeah. This could quite literally ruin his career.
It will. I'm confident. This is not a 2020 hire. This is a 2005, 2008 hire.
Yeah.
In 2020.
So there's a couple points to take away from this if you're a Knicks fan, right? In the perfect world, let's say you guys did hire Kenny Atkinson and you feel really good about that. James Dolan is still the owner.
That's
still a main problem.
That's another. They're just adding more problems.
So
that's all they're doing. They're adding more problems to this team that doesn't need problems.
So now you're adding Tom Thibodeau to an already, I would say, toxic environment, and we know Thibodeau creates toxic environments.
Yeah. Also, the New York media.
And the New York media, yeah, Justin, you're right.
It's in Minnesota.
You're just putting more gasoline on the flame. That's all you're doing. And it just keeps getting bigger and bigger until it burns the whole organization down. That's all it's doing.
So if Thibodeau is a good coach per se, which I'm not arguing whether he's good or bad. He's had good years. He's had bad years. Everybody has their ups and downs.
Wasn't he also the idiot who left Derrick Rose in a playoff game when they were up 30?
Hey, man.
A preseason game, he played him 48 minutes.
Let's say –
look what happened to him.
Let's say Thibodeau is an above-average coach, okay? Just for the sake of argument, let's say that. Okay. Let's say he's a top 10-ish coach in the league, right? Because, there's only 30 teams. Say he's top 10. What do the Knicks have that can make them a competitive team? Because Tom Thibodeau's not developing any young players. Nobody's ever been like, oh, yeah, Tom Thibodeau, he's a real good innovator.
Well, here's the thing. It's what the Timberwolves tried to do where they thought they built a young core who could be win now, and then they brought in Thibodeau, and it went to shit. They don't even have anything
At least
built.
That Timberwolves team had talent that was at least, recognized.
Yeah.
Like Karl Anthony Towns, probably the best big man shooter we've ever seen in the league.
Legitimate star. Jimmy Butler was there at that point. Legitimate star.
Yes. So they built it. They kind of built it like Thibs built a little bit for himself, and we've seen that's where it really fell down.
Well, that's when he wanted the Timber Bowls to be a thing again.
What do the Knicks have that even slightly resembles Towns and the pieces that eventually got Butler?
Do you think that this is a move preemptive if they draft LaMelo Ball?
Still.
LaMelo doesn't fit Thibodeau. He doesn't play defense.
No.
Could you imagine LeVar Ball in New York media with Tom Thibodeau in the New York media?
No.
I truthfully think the Knicks just guaranteed themselves that they're going to have to be looking for another new coach in about a year or two.
So that's the thing. He's not going to make it to the end of the contract.
If he makes it to the end of the contract, I don't even know what I would do. If somebody gave me a plus $50,000 bet that Tom Thibodeau is going to play out his contract in New York, I wouldn't take it. I wouldn't even put $1 on it because there's actually no chance it happens.
$1 at least.
But at this point,
you never know.
Since they've gone coaches, the no-name coaches the past few times.
Yeah.
Was this just James Dolan trying to scramble to just get a name back in there?
It's a placeholder and it's a name. That's all it is right now.
That's the thing. If it's a placeholder, though.
Why 5 years then?
Why 5 years? Well, obviously Thibodeau was 5 years, and that was that's where it started. That's where most coaches start, because even if you get fired, then you're getting paid. Yeah. So I get the 5-year part, but why would you get Thibodeau as a placeholder?
I don't know,
Look at all the better placeholders you get. You can get Fred Hoiberg, who just gets abused by the media and just takes it. You could get other guys that would just be better in the placeholder position. Thibodeau is probably going to actively hurt your future by playing R.J. Barrett 44 minutes a night when he already doesn't have great legs under him.
Not to mention, too, he also just looks like Gru in real life.
Yeah.
From Despicable Me.
Yeah.
But it's just Kenny Atkinson was there for the picking.
He was there. He knows the city. Players liked him. I mean,
he got stars.
Everybody said Kenny started to develop a problem in Brooklyn when there were stars there.
Because the stars wanted to run the team.
So then let's say, okay, Kenny Atkinson could be a placeholder coach. He helped build up a young core. Why would you not get that guy to be a placeholder? If Kenny Atkinson is a good rebuilder, but you don't necessarily want him to coach the team once it's got the stars.
Yeah.
Well, that's the thing.
The New York Knicks' biggest star is what? Taj Gibson? I don't know.
But see, that's the thing. There are coaches who are rebuild coaches and developing coaches, and then there are championship coaches.
Yeah.
You need one to eventually hand it off to the other.
Yeah.
You know,
I agree.
Steve Kerr, great coach, but at the same time, you know, Mark Jackson was there beforehand that developed the Warriors to some semblance of what they are before they handed off to Kerr.
I mean, as far as I'm concerned, Jason Kidd wasn't a great coach, but he was a good placeholder for Giannis until Budenholzer got there.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Thibodeau is neither of a head coach for championship pedigree or rebuilding pedigree.
He's not a good placeholder.
He's just there.
I think you could maybe argue Thibodeau could be a championship level coach because he has the experience with the Bulls and the Celtics. I mean, 10 years ago. But even then, nobody is saying Thibodeau was brought in to help rebuild a culture. Those Bulls teams never had a good culture.
No.
The Celtics team were lucky that they had Paul Pierce, Ray Allen, and Kevin Garnett. They didn't need much coaching.
The Knicks need everything. And the Knicks aren't even sold on Kevin Knox, so that's another play they don't know what's going on with.
Oh, God.
No, you're right.
Kevin Knox.
Like I said,
Kevin
he was
Knox
the
wasn't
player.
good. He
No,
never
never
was
was.
good. I don't know. He was really good in like a couple summer league games. And also,
He's still on the
I'll say
roster.
this. Not truly his fault. The kid is best as a power forward, like a stretch four player. And consistently, the Knicks played him at shooting guard. Like 2 positions lower than he should have been.
A mess.
This was just a stupid move.
Yeah.
And it came out of time where they have plenty of time to keep going. I literally looked up an article. It's 2 days ago. It said Mike Brown added as the 10th candidate for the next job. What in 3 days were you able to whittle down 10 candidates to Tom Thibodeau?
Tom Thibodeau, yeah.
And I mean, who else
I don't see
is
the
looking
appeal,
for
though.
a coach right now besides the Nets?
But the Nets are evaluating Jack Vaughn in the, playoffs.
Nobody else is rushing to go get a coach, and they just grabbed Thibodeau. Like nobody was rushing to get Tom Thibodeau.
But even the thing is too, it's like if they were worried someone else was gonna sign him, they're the Knicks. What do they have to be worried about in general? Who cares?
they let 22 teams into the playoffs this year, and the Knicks weren't even close to being one of them.
Did you see the report too? The Knicks weren't even on the conference call when they were discussing like the crap team bubble in Chicago, and they weren't even they didn't even have a representative go.
I can tell you exactly why, because no matter what they did, Dolan was going to be against it.
Oh,
so that's
absolutely.
why they were
when
they took a vote and it was 29-1, you know, they knew it was going to be Dolan.
Yeah.
So they didn't even bother.
So I can already see this happening. Thibodeau trying to force LaMelo Ball to play defense, LeVar Ball going on FAN and saying how his offensive production is dropping because he has to focus on defense.
Oh, for sure.
That's going to happen.
It's already written in the stars for that to happen. He's going to ruin the team even more than it's already ruined. Like, he's going to ruin the
But how much
progress of
lower can they
RJ.
go?
Ruining RJ. That's what's next.
Yeah.
That's what's next. Ruining RJ.
Well, I mean, we're also thinking that they're just going to win the lottery. If they don't win the lottery, they're screwed. They don't get LaMelo. I truly think LaMelo goes either 1 or 2. If maybe a team really likes Wiseman.
Cavs are going to win the lottery again. We know that happens every couple years.
No, the Cavs will just draft another point. LaMelo Ball.
LaMelo
They'll get Cole Anthony. They'll definitely take like Cole Anthony somehow, some way. But
it does matter.
We're all just assuming LaMelo goes to the Knicks.
But here's the thing too: whoever they draft, Thibodeau will like them. They'll fire Thibodeau. The next coach will come in. They won't like that player they drafted, and they're back to square one.
Exactly.
I mean, isn't that already kind of what they've gone through with Kevin Knox and Mitchell Robinson and
Porzingis,
now RJ?
Even to an extent, Porzingis wanted to leave.
Porzingis wanted out, and who blames him? But
yeah.
This is just the ever-turning, revolving door of the New York Knicks coaches. And in 2 years, they're probably going to need another one.
Under 3.5 years for Thibodeau's era in New York.
Under.
2. I think he makes it at most 3. My bet would be 2 to 2.5. I think if they're still really bad in 2 years in the standings, they'll fire him, even though realistically they shouldn't be a good team regardless.
And if they are,
No
it's a
matter
miracle.
who's the coach.
If they are, it's a miracle.
Yeah.
Any last
How
closing
long
thoughts
until Thibodeau tries to trade a young guy for one of like an old vet that is just well past the prime?
Till they
Tries
send
to get Derrick Rose back.
They'll send Kevin Knox to Detroit for Derrick Rose again to bring him
Yeah.
back to. Oh yeah, that's right. Derrick Rose has already been a Knick,
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. He hated it.
Oh, he's bringing him back. He's
and
coming
they're
back.
paying Joakim Noah. So actually, this was really a match made in heaven for Tom Thibodeau.
Oh, Joakim Noah is going to be decent in the playoffs for the Clippers, and then the
Wait, I
Knicks
thought he
are
was-
going to sign him to another
I
contract.
thought he was on the
He's gonna-
Grizzlies.
No, he is on the Clippers. Oh, he's on the Clippers, yeah. He started the scrimmage for them about like a day or two ago.
Yeah.
Bad move for the Knicks, though,
Yeah.
all around.
This just hammers it home again that they're gonna need another coach in 2 years. They're probably gonna tear down a big portion of the rebuild that they have in a couple of years.
Yeah, they're literally just driving in circles. Like, nothing's going on for this team. Nothing in the near future, nothing in the far future at this point.
No.
If I'm a Knicks fan, this was quite literally the worst hire that there was.
I can't think of a single Knicks fan that actually wanted him as head coach.
The only one that I could think that's possibly worse is Mark Jackson.
I
Ooh,
mean, that was never going to happen.
No.
no. Hey,
But,
with the Knicks, you never know, though.
He could be. He really could be.
Well, that's all the time we got for this episode. Clark, tell people where they can listen to us.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, thank you guys for listening to the Department Podcast. Are we calling this episode 5?
Yeah, this is 5.
Episode 5. 5 in the books. You did start it with 5. Don't forget, you can follow us on Instagram at @the_department_podcast. Follow us on Twitter at the Department P1. This is getting uploaded to YouTube, but don't forget, we are now streaming on all of your favorite podcast apps, including Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Thank you all for listening. We'll see you on the next episode.